So clicks tell you who might be interested, but what about what people actually do? Today, smart agencies are looking beyond digital breadcrumbs and focusing on real-world behavior, where people go, what they buy, how they move through their day. By understanding that, you can connect the dots between online engagement and actual outcomes like foot traffic, store visits, and ROI. Here to unpack how a location intelligence platform and a hyper-local creative approach work together to drive measurable results, please welcome Jason Ayers, the Senior Vice President of Marketing Solutions at Azira, and Alan Cifuentes, the Chief Digital Officer at Chameleon Digital Media. All right, so first question for Jason. Digital advertising is crowded with impressions and clicks, as I said in the intro, but you said the real change is moving beyond inferred interest, which is like reading an article about a specific auto brand, to observed intent, like actually visiting a dealership. So why does that difference matter so much for agencies today?
Well, going back to something JB Smoove said, being able to really embrace mobile location data, right? Every time someone clicks the little, this app can have my location, really puts a lot of creativity and power back into the agency's hand to tell the story to the brand, right? So no longer are we just chasing, as you said, impressions and clicks. Now we're chasing, do we really understand the consumer that we're trying to influence, right? How do we give our brand really meaningful insights before we even get to the campaign stage, right? And then on the back end, can we measure the effectiveness of our CTV ads bridged back to a user's mobile device? So now we know how many of those people who saw my ads, my CTV ads, my audio ads, whatever it is, actually went back and visited my brand's location. So it's really put a lot of power back into the agency's hand to tell better stories for their clients.
Alan, for you, I think most people understand that combining online and offline signals is critical for understanding the full customer journey. Yet many DMPs just sell generic segments like car enthusiasts, while Chameleon builds bespoke audiences based on real-world behaviors, where they shop, where they spend time. How does that process work, and why does it lead to better targeting?
Yeah, so of course we're all familiar with our online audiences. If we want to target people on the Google stack or the Meta stack, we need to find technophiles. But what does that even mean? What kind of websites are they looking for? So what we're trying to do at Chameleon is really understand who is the target audience that we are trying to find. Not only by customizing the audiences for them, we don't really have a shelf of pre-made audiences. We try to understand who are your customers, who are your competitors. But beyond that, what else do they do? Where else do they shop? Where else do they dine? Where do they vacation? What kind of insights we can find with their real-world behavior that can give us a little bit of an edge and an advantage when we are building these audiences? And that's something that you cannot do just with online audiences. That's something that's half of the story. But what you do in the day-to-day, it's what it tells us, like the real hints of information. For example, you mentioned it about going to an auto dealer. For the longest time, growing up, I used to go to the BMW website to know their latest cars, but that didn't mean I could afford one. But once you start seeing people that are actually spending time of their day, going to the car dealership, maybe going to another one, going to 3 within a week. So that tells you that that person is actually in market for that. And it gives you a little bit of the other side of the story. And that's the approach that we have at Chameleon, is to really help our clients understand their audience before we even set up a campaign.
So what BMW do you have now? I'm kidding. All right. Jason, you said that 80% of the data floating in the marketplace is unreliable. So how does Azira ensure data quality and stay ahead of privacy rules while still delivering, usable insights?
Yeah, so there's a lot of vendors in this space, right? And what I can tell you though is you have to work with a breadth of the data, right? So you don't want to just collect data from a certain selection or certain types of apps, right? You want to collect as much data as you can across a wide variety. But you got to go into it knowing that, as John mentioned, a lot of that data can't be corroborated. So you want to make sure that all data that comes in is pretty much considered guilty until proven innocent, right? It's not accurate until we can verify it, because we'll see devices across wherever we're collecting data where it's in Seattle and then 3 seconds later it's in New York, right? We can't trust either one of those, right? Because they both can't be true, right? So it's cleaning the data is really what makes a vendor unique, right? Because no vendor has exclusive access to any of this data. Publishers are selling it all over the place, right? It's how you clean it and how you make it useful and turn it into something that's actionable that's important.
Let's talk about it a little more in action, though. So, can you share a campaign where location intelligence completely shifted the creative or media strategy and delivered measurable ROI?
You want me to take that around?
Alan can take it.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I can take that. So, for example, we were working with a casino client, and they had a huge casino, and they were, hey, can you target people that are coming to visit us and coming to visit our competitors? Because now the location data technology has evolved so much that we don't need to place like a 100-meter radius. We can do like what we call polygon, which is a digital geofence corner to corner of the location. And for those huge locations, we are able to not only do the entire casino, do the casino, the resort, the racetrack, even the parking lot. From there, as I mentioned, we don't just go and build a campaign with that information. We start asking questions. Okay, what is the difference between the customers that come and stay for the entire weekend versus the customers that only come from the day? So that helps understand where do they live, where do they work, where do they shop. Once we identify that the different audiences, we give that information to the client to create different creative variations and understand, okay, for this type of audience is a more affluent audience. This is like the people that only come for the day is more casual. So let's have people in the ads that they can relate to. And then we can, once we start serving the campaign, we are able to track, is this working? Are we actually sending people to that location? We saw on that campaign a 3.5% lift in net new customers, just by not only targeting people that are already visiting them or their competitors, but net new people that we identify as interesting audiences for that kind of product.
What was the most surprising insight that you uncovered, something that changed how the client viewed their audience?
It's a good question. I think more than surprising, it was like, it's in the nuances that, hey, do you see that these are, like, we see these top 10 or 20 locations that the customers that come to the resort, this is where they buy, and the people that stay over, obviously they're coming from further away. We identify different cities or states that they were not in the radar. And hey, here's a really good opportunity here to have an extension of this campaign, trying to get people from this state or this city that come to your location. That's something that is those pieces of information that might not be in the radar for our clients, but we can help identify.
Yeah, and can I build off of that?
Sure.
So every client that you work with thinks that they know their shoppers the best, right? They know everything about them. We know who they are, we know why they come, we know why they love Red Lobster, we know why they don't, et cetera. But you can use this mobile data to understand the true trade area, let's say, for example, of a grocery store or a convenience store, right? They think, ooh, nobody comes to this 7-Eleven unless it's within a 5-mile radius. When we actually look at the data and find out it looks very different than what they thought, right? Their own customer patterns are usually different than what they thought, or their competitors, right? We see this all the time working with agencies, and they'll say, well, these are the 3 main competitors to my customer. Oh, well, let's see what the data says. And it turns out that your competitors in your Denver, Colorado market are very different than your competitors in Tampa, right? But if you don't have the data to back that up, they're never going to believe you. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, when you bring that level of insight to your brand, they're going to really start to think, man, these guys, they understand some things that I don't know, right? And you start to really build that consultative relationship, right? And again, going back to what JB Smoove said, if you want to stand out, you got to bring them something that they're not getting from their other agency partnerships, right? And so I've observed that firsthand many times.
I think you answered my next question, which is how can small agencies prove that they're basically punching above their weight by using data? But Alan, do you have anything to add to that?
I think it's basically approaching it as a consultative approach. Like we were saying, how in the previous panel, how like smaller agencies are going to be competing against these big holdcos is like a client that is part of a big holdco that might not be as a big client for them. They get okay, we're going to have these Google audiences and these regular campaigns. If we as small agencies, we are able to provide this extra level of information, extra level of care. Like we are not just here to take your money and do a campaign and hope for the best. We are here to help you understand something else that you don't know about your clients while bringing the performance for your online campaigns in your online website or in actually driving people to your location.
No, Jason, you brought up storytelling before. So can you give us more of an example of how using data in this way, this real-world location data, for agencies to tell better stories?
Sure. I mean, we all know that in the digital media space, a brand trusts you with $100,000 to run some digital media. What do they get back for that? They get a report, right? And you want to be able to tell them a lot more than just impressions and clicks and now visits. I think you want to go a step further and say, how is that universe of customers different than before we ran this campaign, right? Do more people now shop at the grocery store on Tuesdays than used to? Do more people now shop at fewer grocery stores, right? We actually had a grocery store client, and they were shocked when they realized almost all of their customers also shop at their number one competitor, right? But instead of being annoyed by that, we were like, embrace it, right? That's what the data is saying. Don't fight it, right? Did that kind of answer your question? I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is it really puts a lot of creativity and power back in your hands as an agency partner to tell that story.
Alan?
Can I touch a little bit as well? Something that I've noticed when working with agencies is that with this new generation of advertisers, we are used to reports, performance metrics. So it's getting harder and harder to justify spending budgets on out-of-home, for example. We know seeing a billboard, seeing an ad in the elevator works. You get it, you get the message, but like, how do you prove that? And we have been exploring over the last couple of years, working to prove the performance of those out-of-home campaigns. Obviously, who has been in proximity to the out-of-home ad and then visited the location. But beyond that is like, how far are people coming from to visit your location? Where are the routes that they are taking? Are they taking a highway? Are they coming to specific neighborhoods? Really planning beyond just the, 1 kilometer radius around my locations, I'm going to buy out-of-home locations. It's not like, let's really spend the money where your customers are. And then with the foot traffic attribution, optimize an out-of-home campaign. Oh, these locations are driving more visits. Let's explore these same formats here, or let's expand on this neighborhood. So media that has been historically more awareness-based can get a lot of advantage with this kind of data.
And when all else fails, you can have Shohei Ohtani destroy your billboard.
Exactly.
All right, so Jason, let's talk about AI.
All right. Yeah.
Sorry.
AI. What do you mean by AI?
So AI is already helping recognize patterns, like why some store locations outperform others in ways that you wouldn't expect. So how do you see AI and evolving privacy regulations shaping the next wave of location intelligence?
Oh, okay. So AI today is very good at pattern recognition, right? But you still have to instruct that AI of what sort of patterns you're looking for. So there's still a lot of human involvement in taking advantage of AI, but it can sift through so much more data so much faster than we as humans can. So I think it's going to challenge assumptions that brands have about what's working with their marketing and what's not working. It's going to challenge them to, or it's going to enable them to understand a lot more about their competitors, and also to reasonably break down your audience segments into specific segments, but not so specific that it's not a meaningful campaign anymore, right? We all know we've all had well, I only want to target people who've, done these 3 things and they're left-handed and they only shop for stuff on Tuesdays, right? And you get down to 10,000 people, right? But AI now, with the pattern recognition, we can target that user's entire universe, right? Who do they hang out with? Who else is in their household? Where do they go to church? Where do they work out? Like, you can really blanket, that person's universe and saturate them, even if it's a very small audience, right?
All while staying privacy compliant.
Oh
of course.
yes, I mean privacy is very, very. It's a moving needle, right? Right now, at least in the U.S., there are privacy regulations going state by state, and you got to really stay on top of it. It's not just the regulators in terms of privacy. It's hey, what would we want, right? How do we want to be protected? And that's how our legal team goes about developing our privacy policy. Is, we don't want to be tracking people at these sensitive locations. We don't want, even if it's not required that we don't, you gotta really try to stay ahead of it, right? Because as an agency and a brand, you don't want to be caught. You don't want the narrative to get out, that you are targeting people at reproductive clinics, for example, right? So that's very important, I think, to be mindful of those regulations, but then partner up with companies like Chameleon, who've got, 8 years?
8 years,
Eight
yeah.
years of history working with this data. They've seen a lot of changes.
Alan, next question is for you. So for agencies that are looking to start using this type of real-world location intelligence data, what's one actionable step that they can take to kind of really get the ball rolling?
I think it's starting with, like I like how they put it in the yesterday for data. Like, you need to have a team dedicated to, even if it's one person, to understanding data and analytics for your company. So working with companies like us or with Azira is, okay, we bring the data. What are the list of questions that you would like to know about your customers? Let us be creative with the data and identify those patterns that will help us answer those questions. And then the second step will be open to learning new things. When you approach data with a bias that, okay, I know my customer and I know what I want to find, sometimes when you see data that contradicts that, it's like, oh, I don't know if I should trust this. But like, that's what data is for. Big data and the use of AI to identify those patterns is to identify those pieces of information that you were not aware of. And those are the different things that are going to make you stand out or do something different. If you keep doing what you have been doing for years, data is not going to give you anything new. But if you're open and you are ready to take that information and then make sure that information can be actionable, that you can actually activate a campaign, you can actually inform other types of marketing or media, then it's when you're going to see the value of that.
Now, you mentioned out of home before and digital out of home. What other ways, and Jason, you can weigh in this as well, what other channels that agencies should be considering more when they're doing their media planning that weigh into this type of data strategy?
I would say definitely traditionally awareness channels such as CTV, audio. Those are channels that work, that are more engaging, get people where they are in a more receptive mindset, and using data to kind of like close the cycle and understand if are they going after seeing a CTV ad, are they going to my website, are they buying something, are they visiting my location, am I increasing the frequency of visitation, am I increasing the dwell time? Being able to measure awareness channels is one of the benefits of this kind of data, and that's what I encourage our clients to explore. Beyond going like the mobile display, desktop display, clicks, CTRs, like really going above and beyond and spending time and resources into exploring these awareness channels.
Jason?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I try to encourage people to think about is being able to, let's say, draw a polygon around this conference, for example. Now, it would target this building. We can't do verticality, but we can target this entire audience with CTV ads based on the fact that we saw your mobile device here, right? And then we can measure, did you come back to another Ad Age event later, right? And we're not doing this by your name, right? It's all privacy compliant in terms of the hashed device IDs, if you will. So we're not tracking little individuals running around, but as a group, you know, that's pretty powerful to be able to do, right? Yeah, did that answer your question?
It did. Thank you so much, Jason. Thank you so much, Alan. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.